I wasn't supposed to notice him. He was just another face in the blur of my overworked, overstretched, underloved life. A driver. Quiet. Polite. Forgettable if I wanted to be cruel about it. But that night, that night, everything cracked. It had been one of those evenings where the city air felt too heavy to breathe. My boss had kept me late again, dumping piles of spreadsheets on my desk with his fake smile and his, "You are the only one I can trust with this." I wanted to scream, but instead, I packed my bag, shoved my earbuds in, and pushed through the glass doors into the sharp, cold dark. That's when I saw him. He leaned against a black car at the curb, posture straight, jawline cut like stone in the faint glow of a streetlight. His eyes lifted from his phone and met mine. Just for a second. 1 second. And I swear it felt like he saw right through me, like he'd peeled away the exhaustion, the polite mask, the brittle armor I carried everywhere, and looked straight at the wreck underneath. "Need a ride?" His voice was low, smooth, careful, like he was testing the air between us. I shook my head quickly. "I'm fine. Uber's on the way." He tilted his head, almost smiling. "Almost. Sure about that? It looks like your phone's dead." I glanced down. Damn it. The screen was black. No glow, no signal, nothing. I hadn't even noticed. My chest tightened. I should have walked away. I should have said no. That's what my friends would have told me. Don't get in cars with strange men. Don't trust anyone who looks like they have secrets buried in their bones. But something in me hesitated. Maybe it was the way his voice didn't push. Maybe it was the way he stepped aside, opening the door like he wasn't asking, wasn't selling, wasn't trying. Just offering. I swallowed. "You're with the company?" He nodded once. "Yeah, I cover nights when the regular driver's out." That should have been the end of it. But when I slid into that leather seat, the air inside the car felt different, thick, charged, alive. He closed the door gently behind me, and for a moment, I sat in the dark, my heart hammering like I'd just done something reckless. "Where to?" His voice floated forward from the driver's seat. I told him my address, my tone clipped, my walls already rebuilding. But then silence stretched between us. Not awkward silence, not the kind you want to fill with nervous chatter. It was the kind that pressed against your skin, made every nerve stand at attention. I leaned back, eyes half closed, pretending I wasn't aware of how steady his hands were on the wheel, how his profile looked carved out of shadow and light. I told myself he was just a driver, just a ride home. But my voice betrayed me when I finally asked, "Do you always work this late?" He glanced at me in the rearview mirror. His eyes were darker than I expected. Softer, too. "Sometimes I like the quiet." Something inside me cracked. Because me too. God, me too. We drove like that, exchanging fragments of ourselves in whispers, small pieces that felt heavier than they should have. I told him about my office job, the endless hours, the loneliness I never admitted out loud. He didn't give me pity, didn't give me advice. He just listened, every now and then letting out a hum, like he was holding space for my words. When we reached my building, I hesitated with my hand on the door handle. Something pulled at me, a thread I didn't want to cut. "Thank you," I said, my voice quiet. "I don't usually talk to strangers." His eyes caught mine in the mirror again, and for the first time he smiled. Not big, not loud, just enough to shift the air around us. "Maybe I'm not a stranger," he said. The words hit me harder than they should have. They lodged somewhere deep, where my doubts and fears lived. I stepped out of the car, clutching my bag tight, my pulse refusing to calm. I should have walked straight inside, but I didn't. I stood there on the sidewalk, watching the taillights fade into the dark, wondering why it felt like I'd just lost something I wasn't supposed to have. That night, I couldn't sleep. His voice kept replaying in my head, low and careful. Maybe I'm not a stranger. And for the first time in years, I wanted to believe it. I've always been too careful with love. Careful in the way a burned hand hesitates before touching the flame again. Careful in the way a scar aches when the weather changes. Maybe that's why that night with him haunted me. Because deep down, I didn't believe in second chances. My first love had been the kind of disaster that leaves fingerprints on your bones. I was 19, reckless, too hungry for affection to notice the warning signs. He had a smile that could light up an entire room, and I fell for it like a moth to a flame. Fast, hard, blind. For a year, I lived on borrowed time, borrowing his attention when it suited him, borrowing his promises when he needed something from me. Until one night I found out the truth. He wasn't just unfaithful, he was merciless about it. Told me I was too much work, that love shouldn't feel like babysitting. The words carved into me like a knife. From that moment on, I learned to keep quiet about what I wanted, what I needed, learned to survive on scraps. So yeah, by the time I met that driver, by the time his quiet voice filled the car, I'd built myself into someone who didn't ask for much. Just a paycheck, an apartment, and the fragile safety of not being disappointed again. But here's the thing no one tells you about walls. They don't just keep people out. They trap you inside, too. And for weeks after that night, I felt trapped. I caught myself scanning the streets on my way out of the office, hoping to see that black car waiting. I told myself I wasn't looking for him, that I didn't care. But my pulse betrayed me every time headlights slowed near the curb. One night, 2 weeks later, the universe, or fate, or whatever cruel hand moves us around, decided to test me. I walked out of the office late, rain misting down like the city itself was sighing. And there he was, leaning against the car again, hands in his pockets, eyes catching mine like he'd been waiting all along. My heart tripped. "You," I whispered under my breath. He opened the car door without a word, like the conversation had already started inside. And like a fool, or maybe like someone starved for connection, I slid in. This time, I didn't bother pretending. "You know, I don't even know your name," I said, my voice soft, hesitant. He met my gaze in the rear view. Ethan. Ethan. A name that sounded solid. Safe. "And you?" he asked. "Claire," I whispered, suddenly aware of how intimate it felt to share something so simple. For a while, we drove in silence again, the city lights streaking by. My chest ached with the question I didn't want to ask, but couldn't stop myself from saying. "Why do you do this?" His brow furrowed slightly. "Drive?" "Yeah, I mean, you don't seem like someone who spends his nights chauffeuring strangers. You seem..." I trailed off, embarrassed by how much I wanted to figure him out. He glanced at me, the corner of his mouth lifting faintly. "You think you've got me pegged already?" Heat rushed to my face. "No, It's not the worst thing in the world," he said quietly. "Being invisible. People don't look too closely at the driver. They talk. They let their guard down. They show you who they are when they think you don't matter." The words struck something in me, sharp and true. Because wasn't that exactly how I felt at work, at home, everywhere? Like someone who didn't matter. Someone backgrounded in everyone else's story. "You sound like you know what it feels like," he said, his voice low. I swallowed hard. "Yeah, I guess I do." That night, when he dropped me off, I didn't rush inside. I lingered again, one hand on the door, wishing I had the courage to ask him something, anything, to keep the moment from ending. But he spoke first. "You don't have to tell me everything, but don't lie to me either. Deal?" It was such a strange thing to say. A driver didn't need honesty from me. A stranger didn't care if I lied. And yet, The words hit me like a promise I'd been waiting to make all my life. "Deal," I whispered. I walked into my building that night shaking, my chest full of something I couldn't name. Because I had promised myself after 19 that I'd never open that door again, never let anyone see the cracks. But with Ethan, with Ethan it felt different. Like he wasn't asking to walk through the door. He was just sitting on the other side, waiting, patient, letting me decide if I wanted to unlock it. And that terrified me, because what if I did? What if I let him in, only to find out he was just another flame dressed up as light? But even as the fear crawled up my throat, I couldn't stop the truth from spilling in the dark of my apartment, whispering through my bones. Meeting him feels different. It started small, like most dangerous things do. One night became 2. 2 became 3. And before I could name it, Ethan wasn't just a driver anymore. He was the rhythm of my nights. Every time the office doors slid open and I saw him leaning against that car, a quiet war started in my chest. Relief battled fear. Want battled restraint. I told myself it was nothing. Just convenience. Just another ride home. But convenience doesn't make your palms sweat. Convenience doesn't keep you awake at 2 a.m., replaying a smile like it's the last song on earth. And with Ethan, everything felt alive in ways I'd forgotten life could feel. He listened. God, that was the thing. Not the kind of distracted listening people give when they're already forming their reply, but the kind where silence stretches long and patient until you've poured out more than you meant to. He knew about my mother's silence, my father's absence, the heartbreak at 19 that still throbbed like an old wound. I hadn't meant to give him all that, but his quiet pulled it out of me. "You ever think you're just invisible?" I asked one night as we drove past glowing storefronts. His voice was steady, almost protective. "Not to me." Those words, 3 simple ones, lodged in me so deep I felt them every time he looked my way. And I noticed him too. Noticed how his hands gripped the wheel when he was deep in thought. How he sometimes drove past my street without realizing because he was listening so intently. How his jaw tensed when he asked about the people who had hurt me, like he wanted names. But the night that changed everything wasn't about words. It was about a silence so charged it felt like a storm breaking. We'd stopped outside my building. Rain fell hard, pelting the windshield until the world blurred into streaks of light and shadow. Neither of us moved. The engine idled low, steady like a heartbeat. I should have opened the door, should have said goodnight. Instead, I sat there, pulse racing, air thick with something neither of us wanted to name. Finally, I whispered, "Why do I feel like you're the only person who sees me?" He turned then, really turned, his eyes catching mine in the dim glow. His voice was low, raw. "Because I do." The world fell away. The rain, the city, the years I'd spent guarding my heart. All of it dissolved until there was only him. Only Ethan. And before I could think, before I could build a wall, his hand reached back, hesitant, trembling, and found mine. My breath caught. Heat rushed through me, sharp and dizzying. I should have pulled away. I should have remembered every lesson heartbreak had taught me. But my fingers curled around his like they'd been waiting for that exact shape, that exact warmth, all my life. I leaned forward, just an inch, just enough for the air between us to shift, to tighten, to ache. "Claire," he whispered, my name breaking in his throat. I didn't answer. I couldn't. Because in the next heartbeat, our lips met. It wasn't soft. It wasn't sweet. It was desperate. A clash of fear and hunger and relief, like we'd both been holding our breath for weeks, and finally we could exhale. His hand slid to the back of my neck, steady, grounding, as though he knew I was breaking open. And God, I let him. I let the walls fall, the memories burn, the old scars fade. When we finally pulled apart, our foreheads rested together, breath mingling, silence pulsing loud and alive. "This shouldn't happen," I whispered, though every nerve in me screamed for more. His answer was soft but certain. "Then tell me to stop." I didn't. I couldn't. Because in that moment, for the first time in years, I didn't feel like a shadow. I felt like someone worth touching, worth holding, worth risking everything for. And I knew, deep down, terrifyingly clear, that nothing would ever be the same again. Loving Ethan felt like falling through water. Terrifying at first, lungs screaming for air, but then a strange, intoxicating calm. Like maybe drowning wasn't the end, but the beginning. After that first kiss, everything shifted. We didn't talk about it, not directly. We didn't define anything, didn't label it. But the space between us changed. The silences grew heavier, sweeter. The glances lingered longer. His hand brushed mine whenever I climbed into the car, and it felt like a secret vow. Late at night, when the city thinned and the streets turned quiet, we talked about things I hadn't dared tell anyone else. He told me he grew up nearby, though his words were careful, like he was walking around landmines. "My family wasn't normal," he said one night, his voice low. "I left young, built my own life. I don't regret it." Something in the way he said it told me there was more, so much more, but I didn't push. Maybe because I had my own silences too. I told him about the emptiness in my apartment, how sometimes I'd turn on the TV just to hear another voice. About the birthday dinners I ate alone, candles burning and cupcakes I bought for myself. He didn't laugh. He didn't flinch. He just reached over, his fingers finding mine in the dark, squeezing once like he was anchoring me. For weeks, that was enough. More than enough. But desire is greedy. It grows. It spreads. It devours. And soon, I found myself craving more than whispered confessions in a car. One evening, as he dropped me off, I stayed in the seat longer than usual. The city hummed outside, neon lights reflecting on the rain-streaked glass. "Ethan," I said softly. "Yeah?" His voice was careful, as if he already knew what was coming. "I don't want this to just be nights in the car." My throat tightened, but I pushed through. "I want to know who you are. I want more than shadows." His grip on the wheel tightened, knuckles pale in the dim glow. For the first time, he didn't meet my eyes in the mirror. "Claire," he said slowly, like he was tasting the weight of my name. "What if more isn't safe? What if more ruins everything?" My chest ached. "Then why do this at all?" He didn't answer. The silence stretched, thick and suffocating. When he finally spoke, his voice was rough. "Because I can't stay away from you." The words should have been enough. They almost were. But something in his tone, haunted, restrained, dug into me. I tried to tell myself it was fine, that every man had secrets, that I didn't need to know everything right now. But the longer we went on, the more the silence between us started to feel less like intimacy and more like a wall. Some nights he'd disappear for days, and when he came back, his eyes carried shadows I didn't recognize. I wanted to ask. God, I wanted to demand answers. But every time I opened my mouth, fear stopped me. Fear that if I pressed too hard, he'd vanish for good. So I stayed quiet. I swallowed my questions, my doubts, my gnawing suspicion that he wasn't who he said he was. But secrets don't stay buried forever. One night, after a long day at work, I came down to find him waiting. Except this time, he wasn't leaning casually against the car. He was inside, jaw clenched, eyes stormy. I slid into the seat, instantly sensing the shift. "What's wrong?" His voice was sharp, almost unrecognizable. You shouldn't have walked home last night. Alone. I blinked. How do you... I saw you. His hands gripped the wheel so hard it looked painful. It's not safe. The words sent a shiver down my spine, both protective and unsettling. Ethan, it was 2 blocks. I'm fine. He turned then, eyes locking with mine, fierce and unflinching. Don't ever do it again. Promise me. My breath caught. His intensity scared me, but underneath the fear was something else. Something raw, like desperation. Why? I whispered. His jaw tightened. Silence. And in that silence, a crack opened wide. Who was he, really? Why did he care so much? What was he hiding that made him look at me like I was both fragile and forbidden? I wanted to trust him. I wanted to believe that his touch, his voice, his presence were enough. But as the car pulled away, one truth burned in my chest. Love without answers is just another kind of loneliness. And I was terrified that his silence might break us before we even had a chance. Love always feels invincible, until the cracks start to show. With Ethan, the cracks came slow, like hairline fractures in glass. Invisible at first, easy to ignore. But once you noticed them, you couldn't look away. It started with the silences. Not the soft kind we used to share, the ones that felt like warmth pressed between us. These were heavier, tense. He'd pick me up, ask how work was, and when I'd answer, he'd nod, but keep his eyes on the road, his thoughts miles away. And then the disappearances. A night here, 2 nights there. No explanation, no warning. He'd vanish, and I'd tell myself not to care, not to wait up. But I always did. I stared at my phone like a fool, pretending I wasn't hoping it would light up with his name. One night, when he finally returned, I snapped. Do you even realize what it feels like? I blurted as I climbed into the car. My voice shook with anger I hadn't planned to release. To wonder if you're ever coming back. To sit in an apartment alone, waiting for someone who won't even say where he goes. His jaw flexed, his hands tightening around the wheel. Claire. No, I cut in. Don't give me half answers. Don't feed me silence and expect me to be grateful for scraps. If this, whatever this is, means anything, then you owe me the truth. For a long moment, he didn't say anything. The car hummed forward through dark streets, the air thick between us. Finally, he muttered, I can't tell you everything. The words shattered something inside me. Then maybe you don't get to have me, I whispered, staring out the window so he wouldn't see the tears burning in my eyes. He slammed the brakes at a red light, turning to me with a look so raw it nearly undid me. Don't say that. His voice broke, low and rough. Don't you dare say that. My chest ached. Then prove it. Prove I'm not just some distraction you'll throw away when it gets hard. He reached across the console, his hand trembling as it closed over mine. You're not a distraction. You're the only thing that feels real in my life. His words should have soothed me, but instead, they scared me. Because if I was the only thing real to him, then what the hell was everything else? That night, after he dropped me off, I couldn't sleep. My head was a battlefield. Love against doubt, trust against fear. I kept replaying his voice, the desperation in it, the way his eyes begged me not to leave. And yet, the secrets were still there. A chasm widening between us, daring me to cross without a bridge. Days later, it came to a breaking point. I was at work, bleary-eyed from another sleepless night, when a coworker mentioned something casually about a man she'd seen stepping out of a black luxury car near one of the tallest buildings downtown. A man who looked exactly like Ethan. My stomach dropped. That night, when I slid into his car, I couldn't keep it in. Were you downtown today? His shoulders stiffened. Why? Because someone saw you. Because you keep telling me you're just a driver. But that doesn't add up. And because I'm starting to think I don't even know who the hell you are. Silence. And then, so quietly, I almost didn't hear it. You don't. The admission hit harder than a slap. My chest burned, my throat closing. Then why are you here? Why pull me into this if you were never going to let me in? He pulled the car over abruptly, turning to me with eyes that looked like storms. Because I can't lose you. Tears blurred my vision. You already are. The words hung between us like a death sentence. We sat there in the dark, two people bound together by something we didn't know how to name, tearing apart because of everything unspoken. And in that moment, I realized love isn't tested by how hard you fall. It is tested by how much you willing to risk when standing hurts more than falling ever did. I opened the door, my hands shaking. Figure out what you want, Ethan. Because I can keep breaking for someone who won, to even tell me who he is. I stepped into the night, heart pounding, the sound of the door shutting behind me echoing like a final verdict. And for the first time, I wasn't sure if we'd survive it. Love doesn't die cleanly. It claws. It lingers. It drags you through every jagged edge until you're bleeding and begging for air. The week after I walked away from Ethan was the longest of my life. Days blurred. Nights hollowed out. My chest felt like a cavern, empty and echoing with his silence. I kept telling myself I'd done the right thing, that demanding the truth was survival, not weakness. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw him. His hands gripping the wheel. His voice breaking when he said I was the only thing real in his life. The way he looked at me, like I was the tether holding him to earth. And then, one night, the knock came. It was close to midnight. Rain pounded against the windows, and I was curled up on the couch, trying to bury myself in the hum of the television. When the knock echoed again, sharp and urgent, my heart stuttered. I opened the door, and there he was. Ethan, soaked through, rain dripping from his hair, his shirt plastered to his chest. His eyes burned into mine, wild and desperate. "Claire," he said, breathless. "Please, don't shut me out." My throat tightened. "What are you doing here?" "I can't," he broke off, dragging a hand through his wet hair. "I can't lose you, not like this." Anger flared, hot and sharp, cutting through the ache. "Then tell me the truth. Who are you, Ethan? Who the hell are you?" His jaw clenched. He stepped closer, water pooling at his feet, his voice raw. "I wanted to keep you safe. That's all I ever wanted." "Safe from what?" I snapped, my voice cracking. "From you? From whatever secret you're too damn afraid to say out loud?" His silence was a blade twisting in my chest. "God, do you even care about me?" My voice broke, tears burning hot. Or was this just some game to pass the time? His face shattered then, like I'd struck something deep. He grabbed my hands, his touch trembling. "Don't you dare say that. Don't you dare think for a second that you don't matter to me. You're the only thing that matters." The words ripped through me, equal parts salvation and torment. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to fall into his arms and let the storm end. But belief without truth was poison, and I was already choking on it. I pulled my hands free. "Then prove it. Tell me who you are." For a long moment, he just stared at me, rain dripping from his jaw, his chest heaving, and then he whispered, almost broken, "I can't." The final nail. Something inside me snapped, clean and brutal. "Then you don't get to have me." I shoved the door closed, the slam echoing through my apartment, through my chest, through every hollow place inside me. His muffled voice called my name once, twice, before fading into the storm. I collapsed against the door, sobs racking my body, my whole world unraveling at the seams. because love had brought me back to life. But love without truth had just killed me all over again. And as the rain battered the glass, one thought pulsed through the ruin. This is the end. After Ethan walked out of my life, or maybe after I forced him to, the days hollowed into weeks. Work became background noise. Food lost its taste. Sleep became a punishment, because dreams dragged him back to me, only to rip him away when I woke. I told myself I was done, that I'd survived worse before, and I could survive this. But every survival came at a cost, and this time, the cost felt unbearable. Then, one evening, the truth came knocking. Not with a voice, not with a touch, but with a headline. I was standing in line at a coffee shop scrolling through my phone when his face filled the screen. Ethan. My Ethan. Except the headline didn't call him a driver. It called him Ethan Hale, the billionaire owner of Hale Enterprises. I couldn't breathe. The letters blurred. Billionaire, real estate, investments. Every building in the skyline touched by his name. And I realized with gut-wrenching clarity, he hadn't just been hiding a secret. He'd been hiding a life. I left the coffee shop without my order, my heart pounding, hands shaking. For hours I wandered the city like a ghost, staring at towers of glass and steel, wondering how many of them belonged to him. Wondering how I could be kissed a man who held entire empires and still claimed to be invisible. By the time I reached my apartment, he was already there, standing outside my door, waiting. Claire, his voice cracked as my footsteps echoed down the hall. I was going to tell you. I swear I was. I froze, every muscle trembling. Driver? I spat the word. That's what you told me. Just a driver. His eyes were raw, pleading. I wanted to know if someone could see me without all the noise, without the money, without the name, just me. Anger surged through me, fierce and blinding. Do you have any idea what it felt like? To beg for scraps of truth while you stood there drowning in lies? He stepped forward, hands out like he could hold my fury. It wasn't a lie. Every word I said to you, every moment we shared, it was real. I was terrified. Terrified that if you knew who I was, you'd only see that. You wouldn't see me. Tears burned my eyes. And what if I never wanted the money? What if all I ever wanted was the man behind the wheel? The silence that followed was a knife. Finally, his voice broke. Then, I've been the biggest fool alive. I wanted to hate him. God, I wanted to slam the door and bury every trace of him in my memory. But when I looked into his eyes, haunted, trembling, desperate, I saw the man who held my hand in silence, who listened when no one else did, who kissed me like I was oxygen. And I realized something bitter and beautiful all at once. Love doesn't survive because it is perfect. It survives because two broken people decide not to let go. Slowly, I stepped closer. My voice shook. If you ever lie to me again, it's over. His chest heaved, his eyes wet. Never again. I swear it. And when he pulled me into his arms, when his lips crashed into mine with all the wreckage of what we'd been through, I finally let myself believe him. Love had broken me. Love had tested me. But love, this love, had survived. And as his forehead pressed to mine, his breath warm against my skin, I whispered the truth that had lived in me all along. I thought I'd lost you forever. But sometimes love doesn't let go. It fights back.